There we go. Okay, Chris, sorry, mate. So here we are with issue 156.
Yep.
It's a
This
beautiful
is
looking
it.
cover.
Yeah. I was just thinking back in, let's see, this would have come out in December 92.
Mm.
And I think I picked up this issue. At the time I was working, it was like my first job at a grocery store, and we would get an hour lunch break. So after I would eat, that would take me about 10 minutes, then I just kind of walk around town. And there was a comic book store in town. And I think this is where I bought this issue. And at the time, I would have been looking for things like Dragon Magazine or Dungeon Magazine, which were, magazines based around Dungeons and Dragons. And I think this cover might have kind of threw me off a little bit because it almost looks like something you'd see from a Dungeons and Dragons kind of setting, with two wizards fighting.
Mm.
But then when I picked it up, and we'll get to some of that stuff later. But around that time, I also made the connection with the Games Workshop line of products. So, and I think it was, I think it was 155, issue 155 is where the Battle of, I keep getting it confused. I want to say Skull Pass, but that's not it. The one that you just did.
Right. It's Red Axe Pass.
Red Axe Pass. Right. Like I said, this is my first issue. My second issue probably would have been 155 because I picked up a back issue. And that kind of solidified my feelings for High Elves in there. And here we have the contents.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I said, this would have meant nothing to me because I was all new to this, But I can see the date, and that kind of lines up with when I would have got this. Yeah.
Yeah, important to note that Robin Dews was the editor, which he is now an active member in the Oldhammer community. So,
awesome,
Robin, if you're watching this, mate, then we really love your work. And this is sort of I think for me, and maybe for Chris too, it was kind of like our entry into Games Workshop and learning all about their products and their wonderful monthly issue of White Dwarf. Brought us all these goodies, like things like the Space Wolves pre-release with previews of the models that Jez were working on and the Perrys working on the Empire Knights and so forth. And of course, Wraith Records, the Warhammer Records, I should say, with Wraith, with one of their UK tour dates being outlined here.
Yeah, I was just, when I saw that, it kind of reminded me of, it's interesting how with Wraith and Bolt Thrower and whatever, like there's almost like a built-in soundtrack that goes with all of this,
And of course, come to Battle Magic. Now, the cover of this issue was, of course, hinting at the release of Battle Magic, which is my favorite Magic set. But of course, Chris, you never got to experience 4th edition or Warhammer in general, did you?
No, I owned 4th edition. I don't think I ever got to play it until it was 5th edition. But I had the box set. Nobody was really playing this in the local club that I was in. At least if they were, I missed it. But man, the artwork here is incredible, of course.
Yep.
And I love to see, even though there are different artists involved, they all seem to have, it has a cohesive look to it. It's like diverse yet together at the same time. It's really neat. Yeah, John Blanche has so many cool little, like you can just stare at these for an hour and find all the little details, little things that are going on. It's great. This that little color wheel there, the symbol showing all the different colleges of magic, that really reminds me of Man of War, which was, I don't know if that had come out by now, or is kind of on its way,
Maybe, yeah.
but it's around that time. And I think that's where I really made the connection to the colleges of Magic and how it works. Because like I said, I never really got into the Warhammer Battle Magic, but I do have some familiarity with their Magic lore through Man of War and the different colleges there. And it's kind of cool to see how they how they interact with each other.
Then we've got, of course, the release of the Space Wolves of Warhammer 40k. Now this is Rogue Trader 40k. That's
Exactly. Right.
significant. Yeah.
Yeah, that icon there, or the typeset, you can tell right away that that's Rogue Trader. And this was my first introduction. Well, I shouldn't say it was not my first introduction to 40k. I was first introduced into 40k. So this is probably the thing that caught my eye right away. Seeing this artwork and like I said, that 40k logo. And I was just kind of looking over some of this last night, and man, it's just so cool to see all this background story. And that's like, I think it was the issue that came after this, 157, I think, is where they introduced the army list and all the rules for Space Wolves. But it's really cool that they took the time to put so much background history and in detail into the Space Wolves. I'm kind of wondering if you took these two issues, it's almost like that's a codex,
Almost it is. Yeah, mate. That's right.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Seeing some of these models here for the first time, that's what kind of got me into the hobby. Those colors, those just kind of like the naturalistic view there, with like animals, because I was always really into animals and nature, and I spent a lot of time, I was running around in the woods as a kid. So there's something about the Space Wolves they kind of interested me.
There's Ragnar.
Yeah, what a great model.
Mm.
So much detail in the painting there too, that I'll talk about that more here in the next page. But yeah, really great stuff. Okay, so if I were to be picking up this model and it falls open, this is the page that it falls open to, because seeing those gray hunters, that's my first image. And I was like, what is that? That is so, so cool. And I do have a connection and a love with Space Wolves, because like I said, this is my first image of what I think of when I see Games Workshop games and 40k. I would never really was much of a 40k player, but I do have a connection with these models, and I do own all of these models. They're not painted, and I kind of have a high reverence for how these models look, and that's kind of scares me away from wanting to dive into painting them, because I'm like, I have an image in my mind of what they should look like, and am I going to be able to get even close to that? But I did some test models. I'm getting there. So I wanted to just say, in that previous page there, they had all the stores that were listed. I think that, I don't know if it was this issue or an issue, but at some point I think they might have had some inserts, like just some that came out that had some US retail stores in it. But yeah, Battle Masters, this is a game I also owned it, but never got to play it. And I think that the thing that interested me in buying this were the miniatures themselves. I think by the time I got this, it was kind of on decline, and you could get it at a toy store at like clearance prices. So if you wanted to build an army on the cheap, this was the way to do it.
You know, like the
Now that
promo pic.
that ad there on the left there,
I love it.
my copy does not have that ad.
I've
I
never
don't know if
seen it until now. I've never seen this until now. It's just
yeah, it
oh,
is. It's
the kid with the black hair with the black shirt, and the other guy, like they're all sort of like subdued in darkness, and the other guys have got like sort of halo around them, blonde hair, light
exactly
hair, and light
the good and evil
shirts.
kids. Yeah. That's so
Great.
typical of like even the cartoons of the era, like
Yeah, yeah,
blonde hair people, they're the good guys, and
yeah.
the dark haired people, they're the bad guys. That's funny.
It's funny. They got Golden Demon 93, mate.
I know. One of the things now this issue doesn't really show it, but I like that you get to see a couple models painted by someone other than the heavy model studio, because I think it's really cool to see different perspectives on how people paint. And that's one of the things that I think around this era, we're making a transition here in the White Dwarfs from old Hammer to this newer style where, and I think that this was touched on in your interview with Tim Prow about how the painting team kind of turned over. It was just a whole new group.
Yeah.
And the thought process was having continuity with how things looked.
Okay, buddy. So we've got Space Marine now. The chaos at Kadavar.
Yeah. This is a game that I really wasn't interested in back then. I never played it. For some reason, I was there's something about the miniatures that didn't really touch me. Maybe it was because they were so small. Maybe I thought, and I think a lot of people feel this way. Like, oh, small miniatures, man, they're so hard to paint because they're so tiny. I was just talking to a guy the other day, and he was asking me about my hobbies, and I told him I was painting miniature models, and he's like, oh, you mean like model airplanes and stuff? I'm like, oh no, much smaller than that. And he's like, what? How do you paint so small? And there's this myth, I guess, that the smaller it is, the harder it is to paint. But I think that the opposite is true.
Oh, mate, if you haven't seen Chris's insanely detailed epic models, go to our Discord and check them out because yeah, they're just amazing. So
I had never played Epic, never owned it, and I didn't know the rules. So I think if I had understood the rules, I would have a better appreciation for this battle, because to me, it's the rules that really interest me now in Epic. Hearing some of the Epic podcasts, watching some gameplay videos, and I think the rules themselves are what really made me fall in love with Epic as a game. I think it's cool too, just looking over the turn victory points as we go along. Like turn 1, we had the Space Marines at 30 points and Chaos 10. And then as the game progresses, like, okay, Chaos is catching up. And now it's like, wait a minute, did the Space Marines lose points because they were at 32 and now they're at 31? Because I didn't understand how the rules were played.
Yeah.
But I think that's really cool that the ebb and flow of the game, it's like you're never really out of it. You because you can get victory points in multiple ways or lose victory points in multiple ways.
Yeah, it's still my favorite GW game, mate, of all time.
Yeah.
Space Marine. Well, we've got a painting article now by Mike McVeigh, and I think he's going to talk about Tyrion and Teclis.
Yeah. I think it's so great that they pull back the curtain and he tells you, well, here's this color that I did, and then I use this kind of a mix. So that's really cool. Now, I didn't have these paints. I was still using what I call ceramic paints, Yeah. So here's that that Marauder elf mage.
Mm.
I think that's probably what is that, is that maybe a model from third edition that we're seeing there that's kind of carrying over?
Yeah, I think it's a third edition model, mate. Yeah.
But I really love that model. And I remember seeing, I think it was Mike McVeigh's Wood Elf army, seeing that. That's a thing of beauty there. That's another, I have some memories of seeing that, because I was always interested in wood elves as well. Like I said, because I like nature kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked how it's interesting how that unicorn is based differently than the others. I think that kind
Yes.
of caught my eye too. Yeah. Okay, now these Battle Masters pages, someone did some kind of voodoo magic to get these models painted, because I own these things and I know the kind of plastic that was used and the lack of detail,
Mm-hmm.
because it was like the detail was very soft because of the plastic that was used, and how they got the detail that they did on those models, I'll never understand. It's amazing.
Let's move on to High Elves, the Prince Tyrion and
Mhm.
Mage Lord Teclis. This is sort of the background. I think a lot of this work was done by Bill King at the time.
Yeah, very iconic models for sure. And having never played them, I still like to see them, and have seen them in other battle reports, but they're, yeah, very powerful, it looks like.
Yep. Yeah, they are very powerful, mate. Yeah, I'd love to play Tyrion. Actually, I painted him up and I've got Teclis as well. I played
Okay.
Teclis once, actually, but yeah, I haven't played Tyrion yet. So I'm going to do that
Yeah.
at some
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, and there's my connection, the mail order.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably where I first started getting some stuff from them, because like I said, it was a little difficult for me to get to the game store, but I've used mail order quite a bit back in the day.
And how much were they then? So let's see.
Yeah.
This is in pounds. Let's see. The Grey Hunters were only $12.99 for a whole set of 10. Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Amazing. One of the fantasy battles only £30 for the whole
Yeah.
box set. One of the Holy Grails, the Orc Wyvern Shaman.
Yeah, these are all models that I have to get a hold of now, um, because I've been playing a lot more Warhammer
Mm-hmm.
Warhammer Quest,
Mm-hmm.
and heading into the lair of the Orc Lords. I
Uh-huh.
need some more orcs and goblins to fill up the dungeons. And yeah, Eldar, when I saw them, I kind of fell in love with them too. Had a lot of those models. I had an Eldar army, so I would
Oh,
have had
wow.
all those models there.
Brilliant.
Not painted, or if they were painted, not painted well, but actually I guess I did paint some of those.
I like how the bases, some of the bases are painted differently, like the dark green rims and that kind of thing on the orcs,
Hmm.
which in retrospect, and having painted my orc army for 40K, I actually quite like the dark green rims. It sort of brings out the flesh colors and the yellows and all the other colors on the models a bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I did have dark green rims on mine, and that was
mhm.
mostly because that was just the color that I had.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and I also like how you can see how the orc buildings are made.
Mm.
Just by looking at them, you can see where the styrofoam is and where the pegs are. And I certainly did. I was into creating my own buildings, and orc buildings were always easy to make, because if it looked kind of rough and ramshackle, that was the way it was supposed to look. So
Yeah, rough as guts, I think was the term
yeah,
I would use with these buildings, actually. Yeah, this is sort of the pre kind of, like the golden era where they had all the beautiful terrain made and that kind of thing for the battle.
Yeah.
This is also
I love how
that.
this is the time when they really encouraged you to make your own stuff.
Yeah.
You don't need to buy it. You can just make it with the junk you have in your trash bin.
That's right, mate. Yeah, get some what's that, fly screen? That's the old fly screen they use for the mesh for the fences and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The balsa wood and you're away. You know what I mean? So yeah. No, anytime, mate. I really appreciate it. And thank you again for being on our my first White Dwarf. And we'll talk again soon, mate.
Okay, I'll see you around.
Okay, take care. Thanks, mate.